Okay, and welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me here.
No, you're very welcome. Thank you for being here. Okay, so tell us a little bit about your background, a little bit about your history, and how you got to where you are today.
Okay, if you really want to know,
I do.
when I first started after graduating, I never at any point in time wanted to teach. So I ended up tempting fate, and as you can see, I've been teaching for 32 years now. The whole journey started when I started teaching in the colleges, yeah? And I realized there were so many things that the kids were not learning. Honestly, it baffles me. How can you learn a language for 11 years and not be good at it at the end of 11 years? It doesn't make any sense, you know? And that was what happened with Malaysia, a lot of the Malaysian students, right? They don't have the level that's required at the colleges, right? So I saw that happening. I'm like, the kids can't present, they couldn't do academic writing, and they couldn't really understand the lecturers. Too many for an 11-year education system. So I said, look, I don't want this to happen to my daughter. Is there something I can find for them? And they were 7 and 9 at that time. And that's how it all started, you know. And I ended up teaching in my house. I have an ex-student who used to be at my dining table in my house, right there. He's now my money boss, by the way. Yeah, our CFO. But the other story, the economic story was this. As I was teaching in the colleges, I realized that my car kept shrinking in size. The more I worked, the smaller the car I could afford. So it wasn't making sense at all. This was the other thing that I was dealing with and grappling with. I said, something is not right. So I stepped out to do something about it. And that's how the whole thing came about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you noticed something that was kind of, in your case, it was wrong with the education system that you felt there was an injustice. I'm sure a lot of people in the audience tonight, a lot of business owners, a lot of people running startups, have seen a problem, something that needs to be fixed in the world, a gap in the market, something. But you actually, a lot of people would maybe see that gap in the market or see that problem and not do anything about it. What made you say, okay, the education system, there's something that needs to change and I'm the one to do it? What gave you that confidence to want to actually take that brave step?
We actually looked at the schools and other institutions that were running, and I'm like, there's so many things missing, and if it can work, I think if I get it right, it should work. That was how it started, you know. So if you're talking about going out there to research and see what it's like to run a business, it didn't happen that way. It was more going out there to fix what was happening with the education system. So when we did the whole thing, you know how people talk about thinking outside the box? We threw away the box. So we started with no box. And then we looked at, you know what? We can't do what is going on right now. We went into the future and looked at upon the children graduating, and then 20 years later, what skills would serve them? And we worked backwards all the way to year one. Most people, when they do a curriculum, they start from year one. Okay, what are the basics they need to know? We didn't go that way. What are the skills they need there? So we ended up with an education system that is for the future. But the key question is how in the world do you teach the children today for the future using information of the past? That for us was something that, again, didn't gel or didn't jive at all. So what we're doing is actually teaching for that future. And because of that, it's a little unrecognizable to a lot of traditional Asian parents. They come to our school, they freak out. The kids are on the floor. What are they doing there? They're drawing on the floor, by the way. Just so you know. Crazy things like they're doing water fights for a bio quiz. And so people grapple with that. Can they have fun? Are you sure there's serious learning going on? Yeah, it's a quiz. Just like we can have fun with a quiz. Yeah. Our EdMath papers have got jokes. Lame jokes, but jokes. And the kids at the end of the paper, they're baffled, trying to figure out that particular lame joke, you know. And that's what we do. You know, just shift and make it humanize education a bit more than what it is right now.
So how do you kind of spot what are the skills that are going to be needed in 20 years' time? Obviously, it's a very, very changing world today, to be able to kind of bring anybody in and say, you know, this is what you're going to need in 20 years is a very kind of big undertaking. How do you spot what these kind of
Well, that's a very good question.
these skills are going to be needed?
Yeah, because the way we looked at it was the education system doesn't serve anymore, right? Because the system is very competitive. It used to fit into the world, the industry and the business world, because the business world was also competitive. Today, it is collaborative, but the education system still remains competitive. We compete, yeah, but you collaborate to compete, okay? And that's what is not taught in schools right now. So we looked at that. They need collaboration. The other one is we know they need to be adaptive. In order to be adaptive, they have to be innovative, because otherwise, when things shift, and if you're not flexible enough to be able to adjust, that's it, you know? And that's how. Can I just ask, how many of you find that sometimes when you have graduates coming in, they don't seem to fit into the industry? There's a lot of work that needs to be done, you know, during your interviews. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, that's where the mismatch is happening. Yeah.
But for you personally, you mentioned that, you know, you came in from a teaching background. You were teaching just in your house. Now you're running a fully fledged business, a well-established business. I mean, you've kind of become a business owner by osmosis, I guess, through teaching. How did that all come about then?
Okay, I realized during my third year, I think that I actually had a business running. It was like a by the way sort of thing, and I'm like, oh, really? I've got a business, so I better go learn more about how to run one. So I started reading, and then I started attending talks and conferences and to pick up more things. And that's how the whole journey actually started. And as I went along, I'm like, yeah, I'm an accidental entrepreneur. You know, a teacher first and foremost. But then I realized there were people dependent on us now, making sure that they had their incomes and that there was growth and there was somewhere to go. And I had no idea what to do, you know. How do you do that? Yeah. And then I had friends who gave me the right training tapes, audio tapes at that time, at the right time. And it just gave me answers, and that was how it moved.
Were there any kind of particular key lessons that you learned at that time that really kind of changed your mindset and shaped kind of the leader you became?
Sure. Actually, it came about very unexpectedly. I live in Subang, right? And then down the road from where I live, there was this very short row of shops. There was one particular hairdressing salon. They do facial and all that. So for the first time I went in there, because it was just a walk down from my place. Now, what I got was very unexpected. The lady who owned the shop, I was at the point where, do I continue working, teaching in a college, or should I do something of my own, right? She gave me this advice. She said, you know, you don't really need the whole pie. You just need a small slice of the pie. I'm like, yeah, actually, you know, I could do that. The 20,000 students, you know, in the whole of Subang, I think I can get 50. That would be fine. And over 3 years, I had 200 over, and I had to shift out of my house. Yeah, so that was how it all started, from that very, very unexpected advice I got. And I never got a chance to thank her because, you know, her business moved on, and I didn't know how valuable that bit of advice was. So I can't even thank her. Yeah.
But I mean, so from learning to be an entrepreneur, like you said, almost by accident, you just woke up one day and realized, oh wait, this is actually a business I'm running. This isn't just me teaching at my house.
Yes.
So you learned to be an entrepreneur yourself. Nowadays, you're teaching these skills to kids as well in your schools, and you've got some very, very young kids that are actually entrepreneurs themselves. I mean, tell us about one or two of them, one or two of the kids at the schools. At the
we've got a lot of stories. Because we started having read the books on entrepreneurship, financial education. I started attending training and so on. I said, look, this is something students should know. So I started doing 9 hours of training for from 5 students before they graduate, right? And you'll be surprised. I've got students after 9 hours and they are off to college, and while studying in college, this one of them sold 500 cars. 500 cars, and
cars?
Cars, and wow. He hadn't even graduated at that time. You know, he was buying old cars, fixing them up, and reselling them. It's classic, like Nissan, Sunnies at that time, the Toyotas. And he became a consultant for Puspacom. Right now, it's only 25 years old. Okay, but the one that you're talking about, Dwi Emas, for those of you who know that we run Dwi Emas International School, is the first entrepreneur school in Malaysia. But what has happened is that it's starting to gain a lot of traction from many countries around the world. All right. Now, I brought this up because this is the little business that our 8-year-old CEO runs.
An 8-year-old?
8-year-old CEO. She
Okay.
started when she was 7. So it's a tea business. She insisted she wanted tea. The mom thought she had to sell cupcakes, but she wanted tea. And they sat down and, they went through and sort of created the blend. She said one is called Sunshine, the other is Moonbeam. And why? Because she wanted to make sure the father gets to sleep at night. The father has trouble sleeping, and she wanted the teachers to relax at night. Yeah, very cute stories. So, and the thing is, she's supplying to a cafe in Bali. Yeah, and just a couple of weeks ago, there was a cafe in Damansara that is actually putting her tea as a permanent fixture in their menu. Yeah.
So this isn't the kind of the American stereotype of the small kid with the lemonade stand outside the house. She's running an actual business then.
She's not the only one, we have others. But the beauty of it all is because of what has been happening, she was invited together, she went with me to Finland, and we got to talk on this Slash Education platform. She's invited with the mom, right? She went up to speak. She got a standing ovation. We couldn't believe it, you know? You can get it online. If you check Excited Slash 2017, it's actually the first hour. Towards the end of the hour, she was invited to come up to speak.
But how many people were there in the audience then?
That particular hall had 500 over people.
And she's 8 years old, giving a conversation about how she grew her business. Wow.
Yeah, we had people from many different countries, and even some of the key people from the education department from Finland. Yeah, so it was quite.
I mean, your model now. You mentioned that you run the first entrepreneurship school in Malaysia, but your model is now being taken by other schools all over the world. I mean, that's kind of you're giving out to the world. What's the kind of the global influence now of everything you're doing?
Okay, but I think you may need to know that in our school alone right now, we have 50 over businesses, secondary and primary kids. And each one of them, there is a very strong purpose to what they do. Like we have this other primary child, he's only year 5, but he has chosen to do these plushy toys. He sits down and sews it with the mom, you know. And one of them is he's doing this Hokkien cats because he wanted to preserve the Hokkien language. And so these cats have got names like, for those of you who know Hokkien, Miko, for those of you who know, things like Ban Chan Kueh, Angku, they've got little Hokkien terms because he wanted them to remember. So we even have collaborations between parents and the students. We got our students to do a project. One father has this business where he does this furniture for toys, for children, like IKEA style, they fix it. We got our kids, year 6, they came up with their own, they developed it, they created, they made real models, and they pitched it to this father. Right now, 4 of the designs have been chosen, and they're going to help create and sell it, and they're going to monetize it. Yeah, so that's a parent-child collaboration, yeah? Things like this, and a whole bunch of other collaborations that have come up within the school. So teachers, our teachers are collaborating. We end up with students, teachers becoming our partners, business partners. We co-invest together. And that was the model that people wanted. We have got requests. The big one that's happening is one in Hong Kong. Yeah, we intend to open one in Hong Kong next year. We've got very, very strong requests from Indonesia. They want to start in Bandung. We've got requests, you'll be surprised, from New Zealand, from Australia, from the UK, South Africa, Philippines. Yeah, so it's something for us to look into. People want a Malaysian education system.
But going back to these kids who are kind of running their business then, I mean, when you're a kid, and you know, I remember being a kid, and you believe you can do anything.
Yes.
You know, you kind of there's no limit to kind of, you don't have that kind of, as an adult you're a bit more, oh, but the risks of doing it. As a kid, you don't care. You believe you can do it.
Yes.
So what have you learned, kind of watching these kind of, you know, very young kids, even as young as 8, saying, yeah, I can start a business, I can sell tea, I can get a barley, I can, you know, do whatever I need to do. What have you then learned from watching them, from looking on the outside, looking in?
Okay, we've learned to mentor. Yes, providing a lot of mentoring, and also to open doors for our students and our teachers, plus our parents. We even link them up with, you know, if we think the industry, this would help them, we would introduce them. So that was like one of our girls launched a book. She's 14 years old. She wrote a book and she launched it. And we are actually linking her with a publisher who can take her book further. She's going to be publishing her second book, which she wrote when she was 9, to entertain the brother when he was 6. You know, things like this. The other one that I learned, luckily we were doing it all along, but when you're dealing with children, it's really crucial that you're congruent with your values and your actions. Your actions and your values have to be very congruent. Because the children, can I say it on camera? They have this thermometer that can identify if you are really messing around with them, or the word is bullshit. I'm sorry, but that's what it is. They can tell. So we as teachers, we literally have to live the values. So when we teach them, luckily in our businesses, we practice the value of creating value. We win, somebody else must win, the community or even the environment must benefit from it. Yeah. And so the students can see, and that's what we are imparting to them. Yeah.
So how do you steer a child in the right direction? And when a kid comes to you and they have an idea, and you know that maybe you want to try that, like how do you kind of steer them in the direction of a successful idea rather than letting them get too carried away, kind of down the wrong track?
Okay, that particular what you're talking about has to be supported in the school, and not just on the business end. Is how we teach them in the classes, right? We have a lot of crazy stuff going, a lot of coursework, activities for every subject, whether it's bio or IT or BM or AdMath for that matter. And when they are given all these tasks, we push for them to push the boundaries as to what can be done. Like we have a periodic table. This whole chart right now on our wall is called a periodic table condo. So the students have built it like it is a condominium block. You know, so that kind of thing. So to push and see what else they can do about it. So when when they are doing the business, it's much easier. You just tell them, look, why don't you think what else you can do? How else can it be better? How can you create more value for people? You know, and they'll do it. They'll do it for you, because we didn't set any limits for them, and therefore they'll push it for you. You'll be surprised.
Because I feel like as an adult, every adult kind of waits for that lightning bolt of inspiration. The people that say, oh, I can start a business, but I just don't know what it would be yet. Yeah. And yet here you have kind of children that have that bolt of inspiration. What do you think we can learn then from their approach to how to start a business?
Okay, very nice. The one thing about children is that if you don't tell them that making a mistake and failing is wrong, they will fail forward very fast. Yes, so they dare to just give it a shot, and they will try. When they don't make it, they will fix it. They will, or even if it doesn't work, to toss it out. They don't have any hang-ups, you know, as to, oh, it's really bad to make mistakes. So for us, the faster they make mistakes, and it's in a safe environment, the faster they get to where they need to go. So when people talk about that, I cannot tell you how powerful that bit of advice is. And the other is about being resilient, you know. So if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Go try something else, you know. Yeah. So that's how we just keep going.
So nowadays, then, I mean, you've come from beginnings as a teacher to now running your own business and growing that to a very successful level, to having that replicated all over the world. I mean, do you still consider yourself? Are you still that teacher who just happens to have a business, or are you a businesswoman first and foremost that happens to teach as well?
Thank you. I'm a teacher. I'm still a teacher. I still teach. Yeah. Down to, I would love to take on more classes, but I love the connection with the kids. So what I do now is I train teachers. So I'm still very hands-on, dealing with a lot of the training. Sometimes even dealing with maybe some counseling issues with kids. So we deal with it directly with them, helping parents how to cope with their kids. Malaysian and Asian parents, they get quite lost, sometimes how to cope with their children. I think the big one is the use of devices, the computer and the handphones. What do you do? Take it away, and they can throw a tantrum. Do you give it to them? How do you discipline? Those things, we actually come forward to help the parents cope with it. Yeah.
Okay, and the final question for this segment then, if you were to say to the people in this room, okay, if I want you to remember nothing else from today's session, if there's one key lesson that I want to impart, what would be your one key lesson from the day?
Get mentoring. Just get mentoring. Because when you start a business, it is a journey. It is a long journey. Because we didn't start this to stop somewhere, yeah? We intended to carry on because, especially if our cause is strong, you really got to get and make sure that you see the cause all the way through. But you start, and then what? How do you find your market? How do you even put a value? Okay, once you've got that, then how do you collaborate? How do you grow the market? Next thing is that if people come along and want us to go overseas, then okay, how do I find a partner? Yeah, who do I collaborate with? What I found from going for mentoring and learning from people who are very, very good at training business people is this: they plant a seed. So sometimes whatever you're learning may not bear fruit, like you don't know how to apply it. You can't even see. Like when I was doing the English classes and we hadn't started the school, one of the training I went to, the trainer was talking to us about going global. He said, today's world, you got to go global. We're like, we can't even go beyond Klang Valley. How do you go global, right? So, but it was 2 years later that when one of our, we sat down and wanted to look into going digital, online tuition done to death. So we don't want to do that. So we ended up doing a chemistry role-playing game, the first of its kind in the world, right? But when we hit that idea, we knew it. We knew this was it. This is what they're talking about, being able to take something global, being able to reach that global market. Yeah, so this was the, and then now the mentoring that I've been getting, what I'm getting out of it is collaboration. Yeah, the power of collaboration. And that's beginning to happen in our company right now, And then, okay, so you're going to collaborate. How do you decide who? Yeah. The other one I would say, besides mentoring, is building a team. Yeah. It's not just about gathering the team. You also need to know who to pull together. The biggest mistake a lot of people make is to pull people who are too similar. Yeah. It's easy to work together, but then there are things that all of us don't want to do. So who's going to do it, right? Yeah, so we ended up being very clear where that lack is. We have a gap, and we needed someone there. But when we pull someone there, then we know that we may not talk the same language. Yeah, we might be difficult sometimes, but then we were very clear. Look, you talk differently, I talk differently, so I'm going to have to tell you the way you want to hear it. Things like this. Then it makes it so much easier to move forward. Yeah, the training that has to come together with it. Yeah, it's crazy. But it has to be done, and you do it, then you get it right, you can replicate it.
Okay, slight bonus question. I'm going to cheat. It's my show. I can do what I want. You mentioned about finding a collaborator.
Yes.
How do you find a collaborator then? For people that are looking for a mentor, maybe they're young, just starting up a business, and they need to find a mentor. How do you go about even having that conversation?
Oh, okay. We just put it. Okay, what people say about putting it out to the universe? It's actually about sharing with people what you want to do. Okay, the validations that come back, it starts off with the business mentors that you go for courses. They will tell you whether you're on the right track or something excites them as well. So when that happens, then in the training room, very often you will be speaking to more like-minded people who are ready to grow, who want something different. And then we met people from around the world, and they liked what we were doing. They came to the school, they saw it, and that's how the whole thing went. And then, like, you know what? We need this in our country too. Okay. So how do we make that happen? And then in Malaysia itself, we have, people are asking, okay, they want it in Penang, or Johor, and that's where we are heading as well.
So good news, just travels around. People
Yeah.
If you're doing a good enough job, people will hear about you. Or
Yeah,
will work with you.
because the key thing is they want it for their community, you know? And if you create value, people will want it.
Great, great words of
Yes.
advice. Okay,
Yeah.
I think that's everything for this segment.
Okay.
Thank you so much for your time, man.
All
Okay.
right.